unleashing lightning, jumping from one cliffside to the other, and lobbing fireballs. This is the classic wizard in Baldur's Gate 3, and we're going to be going over ability scores, race, subclasses. The only thing we won't go over are the spells, which are so comprehensive in this game, even with max level at 4 currently, that they'll deserve their own video. Let me know if that's a video type you want to see. But in the meantime, we're going to start right in with our ability scores. If you're not familiar with Dungeons & Dragons, the game that Baldur's Gate is based off of, then you may not know that the intelligence score is the primary stat you want to focus on. This is going to be your spell modifier for every spell you cast, and there's going to be quite a few available to you. You'll want to make sure that this is as high as possible, but that's a little bit of an issue right now in early access. You see, the other classes all receive support for their class through a specialized race. However, the wizard race, which is gnomes, are not available. And I say it's the wizard race because it's the only race in the basic player handbook that provides +2 intelligence. So while you can get a +2 strength modifier for your fighter, you can get a +2 dex modifier for your ranger, you're not going to be receiving a +2 intelligence modifier in the current early access build. And while that is a little bit sad, it can be a little bit freeing because there's a lot more classes that provide that +1 intelligence modifier than there would be if we only focused on creating a gnome. So we're going to be going over each of those. The half-elf is the first one we're going to be talking about, specifically the high-elf half-elf. And with that, you'll note that, of course, any of the classes can add or subtract from one skill or another. So why then am I choosing the high-elf? It is simply because of this wonderful cantrip, Minor Illusion. This can create many opportunities in-game where you force your opponents or just NPCs that you want to distract away from a certain area, and that can be amazing. Now, the half-elf receives a +2 to charisma, so you'll be the talker of the group more than likely. You'll also get dark vision and fey ancestry, both of which are really great. But if you want to focus more on a survival elf than the half-elf, then you can go straight to our elf race and select the high elf subrace. This will still get you the minor illusion, this will get you the fey ancestry, this will add keen senses, meaning you have automatic proficiency in perception. You'll keep your dark vision, you'll get a +1 int boost, and you'll receive +2 to dex, which will affect your armor class. Now this all leads to a more defensive build than the half-elf, but let's say you want to go a little bit different than the typical mage elf. You want to maybe play a tiefling. Two of the sub-races available do have that +1 int, while still getting the +2 charisma, allowing you to take on more of a speaking or deception role than perhaps the traditional high elf race. This also means that you're going to be able to choose between cantrips. Now here is the thaumaturgy, which manifests as a supernatural power that grants you advantage on intimidation and performance checks. So if you want to be a bit of a role player, you may wish to choose the Asmodeus tiefling. You will still receive dark vision and hellish resistance regardless of who you choose. But if you want to have a tiefling with mage hand, then you'll be able to instead select the Mephistopheles. You're going to get that int bonus, you're going to get that charisma bonus. Really the only difference is the cantrip that you are choosing. The next race I want to talk about is, of course, going to be our human race. This is more of an average build, but there's nothing wrong receiving a +1 bonus to all of your stats in lieu of any additional cantrips or skills. They don't have dark vision, which I find in this game to be a little bit of a downfall, but there are definitely ways to get around that. Getting an average human stat bonus is not a bad thing, but If you want to go for something more unique, then you can certainly go for the Githyanki. This will allow you to receive not only your +1 intelligence, but +2 strength, armor proficiencies up to medium, short sword, long sword, and great sword, as well as that same mage hand you can get as the Mephistopheles tiefling. This ultimately leads you with a character that can both practice sword and sorcery, which can be quite an amazing feel for you. Just remember that for wizards, you receive a very low health, so you may wish to consider getting a constitution bonus instead of other skills like wisdom or charisma. This is because, while the other classes that you can play a sword and board style start out with quite a bit more health, the wizard will only get a 6+ con maximum at level 1, and then a 4+ con maximum at level 2 and beyond for their health bonuses, meaning that you'll find yourself with much less health than other classes. And if this is what you really want to advance in, then you'll definitely want to pay attention to the Abjuration Subclass we're going to talk about in just a moment. First though, if you don't want to be caught by surprise when our videos make their grand entrance, make sure that you stay subscribed by coming to our lovely blue icon right here, hitting the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell notification. If you don't, you might find yourself missing out on something big. Reaching level 2 with the wizard can be quite exciting because whereas other classes will get their subclass at level 3, the wizard gets to choose their subclass even earlier. Now, this choice may not seem that powerful at first. However, I want to go into each of the subclasses, which are, at this point, Abjuration and Evocation. More subclasses are likely to follow as early access continues, balancing continues, but as we're here in very early access, we'll focus only on these two. Choosing a subclass will gain 2 spell choices. In this case, Abjuration will gain protection from evil and good, as well as jump. This can be very useful when traversing the map. And of course, in addition to the Abjuration spells you receive, you will also gain access to the subclass feature Arcane Ward. Those familiar with the Wizard class in Dungeons & Dragons already know a little bit about this, but I want to go over it for everyone, and that is when you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, you will gain a temporary health point pool. And then every time you cast a first level or higher spell after that, the ward is going to regain a number of hit points equal to twice the level of your spell. And so with that, it provides just a little bit of a barrier that can help you survive in the current balance, which can have a wizard dying in the first 1 or 2 hits that he or she receives. And while Abjuration School is great for boosting your own defense and capabilities, Evocation is a little more on the offense style. We'll take a look at the spells first. We do receive Ray of Sickness. Now this is a very powerful spell at level 2. With 2d8 poison, you may be able to start destroying your enemies in a single blast, depending on the dice rolls of course. And while we don't receive Jump, which would allow us to traverse the map quite easily, we do receive Featherfall, which can allow us to ignore all fall damage, getting down from high ledges that would otherwise destroy us with a normal jump. I don't find that as useful as the Abjuration's jump spell, but with Evocation relying on a lot of damage, I don't need to find it that useful. Talking about damage, you're going to be able to ignore your allies when casting Area of Effect Evocation spells. They'll take no damage and also automatically succeed their saving throws. This means that you can start ignoring them when fighting a cluster of enemies that you need to blast everyone away with. I wanted to show off sculpting in the Evocation class just to show how useful this can be. We of course have our level 1 spell, Thunder Wave, which is an Evocation 2d8 Thunder spell that will include an area of effect. And while it would be more useful if multiple enemies were gathered, I can go ahead and start blasting away because our ally will take absolutely no damage from this. Let's take a look. You can see that, of course, the enemy made a saving throw. That means that the damage was reduced. But our ally right here, flaming as she may be, took no damage. Now imagine 3 or 4 enemies all lined up, taking that single blast, each having to make their own saving throw. That is really the usefulness of Evocation that the Abjuration subclass won't see. While Evocation allows you to destroy enemies in groups a little bit more efficiently than the Abjuration Wizard, the Abjuration Wizard's going to see more use before a battle begins than the Evocation. This is because we can use self-buffing spells, in this case like Mage Armor, to cast on ourselves. We now have Mage Armor, which increases our armor class by 3, and Arcane Ward, which does have a magical barrier. Let's go ahead and get right into battle. And we're going to skip over the turn just to show you this. You can see that the ward is gone, however, not forgotten. All of our enemies pile up. We have a critical miss. And our wizard has certainly taken less damage than we would otherwise. So let's go ahead and cast armor again, just so that we can show that off. We now have our ward back. We're going to be able to continually regenerate this while we have spell slots, because remember, the HP of the ward increases by 2 times the level of the spell cast. This is where your abjuration power is going to come, and while we should not be using the wizard as our frontline tank, this shows that in fact he can be the focus of enemies and survive by using his abjuration spells. And that's going to do it for our wizard video today. I hope that you found it useful. If you did, consider leaving a comment or like below just to let me know. And if you want to keep seeing these videos as they come out, make sure you stay subscribed and hit that bell notification to be alerted. We're going to go through each of the classes as we've been doing, but after that we may consider other videos, such as that spell video I talked about, or beginner tips. Let me know what you'd find most useful. I am Nidanoski, and as always, have fun.